Hello again, it's Josephine and I'm on my not my Talk to Joe, I'm on my Good Enough Mums page today. It's Tuesday. Start the day by knowing which day of the week it is. It's always helpful. So what I thought I'd talk about today is several different thoughts that I'm bringing together because of stuff that's been happening to me this week. And one is thinking about when difficult things happen to us. And those of you that have looked at my page will see that I shared a piece of word porn about the moments in our lives where things can suddenly change. And it can be a phone call, it can be a knock on the door, it can be a diagnosis, it can be meeting someone who becomes the love of your life. There's moments that change us forever, and the word porn was saying that it shows how fragile we are, that in a moment who we are can change completely. And I think that's a very interesting thought. And so I wanted to touch a little bit on that and about our attitude towards suffering. And also at the same time, I was talking with a friend this week, and we were talking about how to deal with difficult people. And I was telling her about something that I've learned over the years and which inspires me in my counselling. And it's a quote by Carl Rogers. And Carl Rogers talks about how when he was a young boy, his parents stored the winter's supply of potatoes in a sack in the basement. And the window, it was a small window, 2 or 3 feet above the sack. And he noticed how the potatoes would try and grow, and they'd send out white, spindly little shoots, and they were nothing like the green shoots that potatoes send out in spring when they're in the earth. But what he noticed was that the potatoes were still trying to grow. And he based a lot of his philosophy of people on the idea that in all of us there is an innate desire and forward momentum towards growth. But the point he was making about the potatoes is they were in less than ideal conditions. And it's this that inspires me when I'm working with all sorts of people. And he speaks in a very poignant way of people on the back wards of state hospitals. So patients who've got mental health problems, who've really just been shut away from the world because the way they've grown, the way they've developed is in such an awkward and difficult way that it's very difficult for people to understand them. And yet Rogers says it's the conditions that they were given in which to grow. And his inspiring message is that if we provide people with different conditions, gradually what can happen is they can begin to grow in a healthy way. And I find that very inspiring because it helps me in dealing with difficult people. It helps me to understand that sometimes we see the most awful behaviour. We don't really understand it, we don't really know why it's there. But sometimes it's the only way that individual is able to express their growth. And sometimes they're brought up in the most terrible of conditions, and that makes them the person that they are. And I think that gives us a sense of compassion for people. But also I think as well, it can give us a sense of compassion for ourselves. And part of what happened to me this last week was I had a moment in my life a few years ago where my life changed in a moment. And my moment was in that 5 minutes before someone started school. And I heard something that's changed my life forever. And that's something that I've been dealing with over the last couple of years. And it's very easy, isn't it, for people to try and reach out to you, to try and make you feel better in a way that really isn't helpful. Or they might not even try and make you feel better, they might just walk on the other side of the street because your pain is something that they find themselves unable to handle. And I guess I think what spoke to me this week was that sense. It's so easy for us to hear about trite things, and for people to idly pass on words like, oh, well, if life gives you lemon, then make lemonade. And in a sense, there's it can be a very uncompassionate response to people who are really suffering. And sometimes what people who are suffering need is just someone to be alongside them, and for someone just to understand them, and for someone to listen. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend have a look on YouTube and see if you can find Brené Brown's video that has been animated by the Royal Society of Arts, where she talks about empathy. And there's a lovely piece in it where you've got somebody who's at the bottom of a deep hole, and there's someone standing at the top of the hole looking down and saying, well, at least, and people often try and make you feel better by saying, well, at least this. So, for example, in the Brené Brown video, I think it's an animal that's been animated, but the animal is saying, well, at least your partner is still alive, or something along those sorts of lines, in an attempt to make someone feel better. And it just doesn't recognise the pain that that particular person is feeling, because often people are feeling something that's very individual to them, and what they really need is to hear you, understand them, to hear you, be able just to know, to empathise with them. But often that's really difficult for people. And I think this is where what I was talking about with the Carl Rogers quotes comes into it. People grow in a particular way, and we don't really know why people are the way they are. And we can try and be kind to them, but sometimes things that happen can be interpreted in a different way by them, because they're their own unique person. But I think if we can bear in mind what Carl Rogers was saying, that everybody has a reason for being the way that they are, I think that enables us to extend compassion to people, and to understand perhaps the people who do brush off your suffering. It's just for them, they cannot meet such great suffering. They cannot meet what you need, because it's too much for them, and there's reasons why it's too much for them. And I think that enables us all to be a little bit kinder to ourselves, to be kind to other people, and to be kinder to ourselves. I think it's so difficult to be kind to ourselves, because we often, we're sort of judgmental towards other people, and we're very judgmental towards ourselves. But if we can find a way to understand that everybody is just doing their best in the world, in a funny sort of way, it sort of then enables us to understand that we're only doing our best as well. And that enables us to be kind to ourselves, and to be really gentle with ourselves when we're going through some form of suffering. I'd just like to give a shout out to Pam, who's watching. Hi, Pam. I'm not very good at dealing with the comments here, so they don't seem to come up on my phone, but I just wanted to say hello and thanks for joining me. I'm going to finish there, and I hope that if you watch this on replay, that it is able to help you in some way. Take care now. Bye.